Okay, I believe the recording has started. Chair, if when we come to the speakers, if you could just ask the speakers to introduce themselves by names. And I will now hand over to the chair for the commencement of the meeting. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. It's nice to be here in the warm and not outside having to come through this windy atmosphere that's outside. So I'm Councillor Sheila Peacock and I'm chair of the meeting tonight. Councillor Barbara Blake, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Barbara Blake, Seven Sisters Ward.
Councillor Rossetti.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Rossetti, Alexandra Ward.
Michelle Williams, legal.
I'm Michelle Williams and I'm the legal advisor.
Dahlia Barrett.
Good evening, I'm Dale Barrett, I'm the licensing team leader.
And Nazir Chowdhury.
Good evening, I'm Nazir Chowdhury and I am the Principal Committee Coordinator and Clerk to this hearing.
And we got representations for the Crank brothers. One is the Friends of Finsbury Park. Do they have to introduce themselves? Or can I carry on? Diane Burridge?
Everyone has to introduce themselves, Chair.
Please, yeah.
So, Diane Burridge?
Oh, hang on. Oh, hello. Yes, hello. I'm Diane Burridge. I'm representing the Friends of Gillespie Park.
Thank you. Where exactly is Gillespie Park? Sorry to be ignorant.
It's right near the Arsenal tube station, and there's a link, a Parkland walk, which goes to Finsbury Park station, and then one day the aim is to link it to Finsbury Park itself.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay.
Sarah Potter, are you with us?
Sarah Potter is not attending.
Okay. Conrad Borowski.
Yeah, hi, I'm Conrad Borowski. I live in Stapleton Hall Road to the northwest of the park, and I'm representing myself.
Okay. And Gordon Hutchinson?
He doesn't seem to be here.
No. Gina Harker, I'm sure you're here. I've seen you.
That's me. I'm here. My name doesn't seem to be there, but that I am here, and I'm representing residents of Stroud Green.
Okay. And Maria Ahmed.
Public Health are not here this evening, Chair.
Okay. And the applicant for Crank Brothers? I've got
Hi, yes, I'm Kieran Clancy. I'm one of the directors of Crank Brother.
And Julian Butterfield?
Yes, hello there. Jules Butterfield, Community Liaison Officer for Crank Brother.
And Mike Bowles.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, Mick Bowles. I'm the Safety Officer for the event.
Okay. Well, please note that this meeting is being recorded.
Sorry, Chair.
For public viewing. Yeah.
Sorry, Chair.
Yep.
You've missed Mr. Carter and Mr. Graham not introduced themselves.
Oh, because they're not on my list. Not on my list.
Yeah.
So,
Tom Graham, Friends of Finsbury Park. Really nice to meet you. Thank you.
Oh, Sarah Potter has now arrived.
And Clive? He's speaking through Naz's phone?
No, I think Clive does not have a microphone, but I've informed him that if he would like to speak, he can speak through my phone. So, yeah. Mr. Carter, if you'd like to phone my phone when you give your representation, you're more than welcome to do so.
Yeah, Clive and I spoke before. I'll represent Clive. So thank you.
Okay. As I said, that this meeting is being recorded and will be available for public viewing. Are there any apologies for absence?
Chair, can I just flag that Miss Potter has now joined the meeting as well?
Okay.
I am sure that Gordon Hutchinson will be will be wanting to join the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
I've spoken to him earlier this afternoon, and I know he's coming. So
okay, thank you.
He's not waiting outside somewhere, because it is sometimes difficult to join in these meetings.
Thank you very much, Gina. Thank you. Do members have any declarations? Oh, sorry. As this is a special meeting of the subcommittee under Part 4, Section B, Paragraph 17 of the Council's Constitution, no other business can be considered at this meeting. Do any members have a declaration of interest? No. Okay, so
just as a sort of point point of order, Chair. I would note the council's kind of inherent conflict of interest in that it's licensor and beneficiary of the
Chair,
funds.
can the person who's speaking please state who they are for the records, because if they're not on camera, we don't know who's talking. So if they can state their name for us.
Forgive me, Dahlia, I'll be on camera shortly. It's Tom Graham from the Fence at Finsbury Park. Thank you.
And I think Michelle Williams, you can speak now, please, about the conflict of interest.
Yes, Chair. In terms of the conflict of interest point, local authorities perform many functions and wear many different hats, sometimes in relation to the same issue. The licensing committee consider each licensing application on its merits and are concerned solely with the promotion of the licensing objectives. So there is no conflict of interest. And if the licensing committee were to consider issues such as the revenue derived from the hire of the park, and who should and shouldn't use the park, those will be relevant considerations that could give rise to legal challenge. So there is no conflict of interest, Chair.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you. You know, the procedure for the meeting has been emailed to all participants by the clerk for the purposes of any members of the public watching. We will first hear from the licensing officer. After that, the objectors will present their case and the committee and the applicant will have the opportunity to ask questions. Then the applicant will present their application and the committee and objectors will have the opportunity to ask questions. All parties will then have an opportunity to sum up, and then the meeting will conclude to allow the committee to deliberate and reach a decision. This decision will then be provided in writing within 5 working days of the meeting. So can I ask Dahlia Barrett, please, can you introduce your report?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, shall we deal with the, as it comes in the agenda then? So the first up is the application for the new premises licence, which has been submitted by Crank Brothers. Crank Brothers Limited. Kieran Clancy is the director of the company, and the application is on page 11. But Mr. Hutchinson is just joining the meeting. Okay. The application is seeking a new premises licence for 1 day for licensed for activities that will be carried out each year. It's an indefinite licence, and it would sit alongside the existing Crank Brothers premises licence, which you can see at Appendix 2 on page 137 of the overall pack, Chair. As I said, it is for an indefinite licence that's being looked for to allow for the sale of alcohol, regulated entertainment. The capacity within the regulations would allow up to 999 during the hours shown at 1.2 there, Chair. However, Crank Brothers are saying that they wish to limit that to 8,000 for the event day. The proposed event site is to the east of the park at the Manor House end along the carriageway that runs parallel with Green Lanes. The events themselves are ticketed events on days that have been pre-arranged with the park. So currently, under the current premises licence that Crank Brothers hold, they have 4 event days. And of course, those days are then discussed and pre-arranged with the park as to when they actually are able to then make use of the licence that they hold. The site location for the event space will be a fully enclosed space with fencing around it, and the plan shows this on page 131. Chair, just to pick up that the event did take place last year. The Crank Brothers did use their licence in 2021 and had 4 days of event last year. And just for the information, Chair, in terms of any issues arising from the event, our out of hours team were called to noise nuisance, but on arrival, it was an illegal rave that was taking place on site in the park, which they then had to have police assistance to disperse. Nothing related to the event at all. During the consultation period, Chair, the responsible authorities were consulted in respect of the application for the new premises licence. And in the pack, Chair, you have the draft event management plan And Chair, just to point out that, of course, for people that are not familiar with the event management plan, it does cover quite a wide variety of requirements and actions that an event organizer would need to satisfy. And you can see on page 28 to 29 of the pack, the index there of all the various matters that are covered within the event managed plan, some of which is going to be the adverse weather matters and, you know, contingency plans, fire safety, health and safety, all of that is all covered within that event management plan.
Daniel, can I just stop you for a minute? Something stupid has just come up on my computer, which I have absolutely no control over. And it says your computer's about to restart. And you've got 58 minutes remaining before your computer restarts automatically. Your computer must restart to complete the installation of application. I can't stop that. I don't know what to do. It says restart or snooze.
Sounds like we should talk quickly, Chair.
Do I go to snooze or do I go to restart? I'm totally confused.
Well, dear, it's a difficult one. Yes, Naz, what would you?
What I would suggest is that, yes, I think you're right, Chair, that it is sort of unstoppable. I think the best thing to do is to proceed with the meeting, and then as we are coming up to the period where it appears to be shutting down, I think we'd perhaps adjourn the meeting for that period and then allow you to log back in after the adjournment period is over. We can.
Thank you. I thought I'd better tell you because I didn't want to suddenly disappear.
Yeah.
Right. In 58 minutes time, Chair, if you go missing, you'll know why.
Yeah.
Chair, so to continue, the plan for the that sits with the application is in Appendix 1 with a draft site plan that shows the approximate area and layout. Events of this nature are subject to a safety advisory group meeting and planning process as the plans progress. And although there is the draft documents in there, as events are being planned or are in the planning stage, it wouldn't be the norm to put these documents out in the public domain here because they do contain commercially sensitive information also. Point 2, relevant representations. So we do have representations against the application by residents and residents groups and also the park groups, Chair. Apologies, a Friends of Finsbury Park rep, although yes, shared as required under the legislation with Crank Brothers, it was omitted in the print run for the actual report, Chair, but it's now been sorted out. The grounds of the representations received, Chair, speak to the prevention of crime and disorder, prevention of public nuisance, public safety, and the prevention of children from harm. Residents have referred to a wide range of concerns about the proposed event, ranging from the capacity being requested to the use of the park space for events in general, the duration of the occupation for the event, loss of park space for a number of days, and so forth. The crime and ongoing issues that they speak to, that they say happens in the park. Some representations raise concern of the fact that they're still in a pandemic and encouraging some people to attend the park is not a welcome project and so forth. Chair, just to highlight that if there are any statutory legislation around the measures needed to manage the coronavirus, that would not sit within the remit of this committee, of the subcommittee, to determine at all. It would probably be a matter, once an event is being planned, that the officers who attend the safety advisory group, which will have your environment health officers on there and also representatives from public health, will be able to give advice and speak with the license holder about any specific requirements, if there was anything in law that required them to put things in place. And then as part of that, we'd make sure and oversee that was done, Chair. Also, Chair, just another matter that isn't within the committee's remit. The use of the park or condition of the park, compaction, seeding, the effect on the grass, that sort of thing. That's all contractual issues. So again, not within the remit of this committee to consider. Okay, just so the panel will bear that in mind. The representations that are in the pack, Chair, can be seen on page 153 to 168, and the Friends of Finsbury Park representation is in the additional bundle pack at the front of that, Chair. The park has been known or is being dealt with in terms of ASB hotspot, and there has been a history of drug dealing, violence, including harassment towards women and sexual assaults on women and girls, Chair. And it is something that both the council and the local police are actively dealing with. So just to let you know that the local S&Ts did inform on a local ward meeting that yes, the problems are still persisting. They've had op perch, I believe, that's been taking place and been quite effective in dealing with the matter in the last few months. There are some additional CCTV cameras have been put up in the park, and more are being rolled out, I believe, at the Manor House end and the Indymin Road end as well, Chair. So work is continuing, and they also informed me that they were actually meeting with the Friends of Finsbury Park on the 4th of March to further discuss the ongoing issues in the park also. Chair, point 3, the responsible authority representation. So Public Health had made representation, Chair. That representation has now been withdrawn. There's no additional conditions that have come out of that representation, Chair. I think Public Health are more satisfied that, you know, obviously, even with the existing licence, the promoter goes through the SAG process, and any issues that arise that need to be discussed is discussed at that point, Chair. In terms of the proposed licence conditions, Chair, the applicant has offered a raft of conditions, Chair, and they are in fact very similar to the conditions in the existing licence. I did go through them earlier today. So you have got a list of them there, Chair, in a document. Members are asked to consider the schedule and are asked to incorporate any conditions as appropriate if minded to grant the application in order to address the licensing objectives. It is possible that no additional conditions are required, obviously depending on what you hear this evening from all parties, Chair. In terms of background, Chair, there are 2 distinct separate processes that need to be followed when a promoter signals an interest in hosting an event in Finsbury Park. Firstly, the operator must gain permission from Haringey Council's Park Service for the hire of the land for their proposed event. This requires the relevant lead member signing off on a report to allow for the hire and the agreement to use the park space. The second process of that, Chair, is the premises licence via the licensing authority, which enables that promoter to therefore offer the licensed activities that they wish to put on at their event, the sale of alcohol and regulated entertainment, in fact. No licence can be put to use unless the holder of the licence has the permission of the parks to book the park in the first instance. Once events are agreed, parks officers work in conjunction with the organisers and licensing officers to ensure the event is managed in a safe way. This includes managing the various competing needs and opinions of stakeholders. The licensing authority will also arrange a safety advisory group meeting to discuss and ensure oversight on conditions being upheld and promoted by the licence holder. So you have at point 6 the relevant laws and guidance there. I won't go through them all, but obviously, as you're aware, everything must be linked back to the licensing objectives, the 4 licensing objectives, Chair. And also within the document, Chair, you've got sections from our own statement of licensing policy. We've said at 1610, location and other relevant considerations. So, you know, when considering the appropriateness of a license for certain premises, within the policy, we also encourage responsible retailer scheme and also the safety scheme, which is the Arts for Angela scheme, which feeds very well into the narrative at the moment with the violence against young women and girls, and making sure that, you know, promoters, ourselves as council, we're doing all we can to ensure that we've got safeguards and measures in place in these kinds of situations and on licensed premises. The authority will need to carefully balance the conflicting needs of residents, patrons and businesses in relation to the introduction of premises and flexible opening hours for the sale and supply of alcohol. And on page 4, Chair, at 2014, we've got there the section from the Statement of Licensing Policy on outdoor events, Chair. Basically, we're saying where the LSC's discretion is engaged, following the consideration of relevant representations, the licensing authority will consider attaching relevant conditions to licenses, permissions to promote public safety where these are not provided for within other legislation and are necessary for the promotion of the public safety licensing objectives. This may include additional site-specific controls relevant to the planned activities and their timings, Chair. You've got section 7 there, the comments on the licensing officers, Chair, which I'm not going to run through because I know you've read through it all. And in terms of your decision making, Chair, the panels at decision making, the steps that are open to the panel will be to either to grant the application subject to any mandatory conditions and such conditions as it considers necessary for the promotion of the licensing objectives, to exclude from the scope of the license any of the licensing activities to which the application relates, to refuse to specify a person in the license as the premises supervisor, or to reject the application. For the purpose of the Licensing Act, conditions of the license are modified if any of them are altered or omitted. And obviously, we would always ask that the panel gives clear reasons as to how it arrived at its determination, Chair. And as you know, Chair, Section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Act comes into play here, as does the Human Rights Act, Chair. Chair, I'll have it, unless you need me to run through specific areas in the report, because I know you've had the opportunity to look through it. Yeah. So if you have any questions for me.
Well, I'll ask members. I'm really constrained by the timing of this thing, because it says I've now got 47 minutes and I still don't know whether to press restart or snooze. Anyway, can I ask Councillor Blake if you have any questions of the report?
No, Chair, I have no questions.
Councillor Rossetti?
Yeah, just one question, but I believe that's been answered. It's about the statement from Public Health, because I've seen it in the latest pack submitted a few hours ago. There was something written in red where it says that there were no conditions applied by Public Health. So I wonder if this is what you meant when you mentioned that they've withdrawn the statement.
Yes. So on the Public Health representation, they had put forward, well, they would probably consider them conditions that they were proposing, and they also raised a few questions as well. So in the intervening days, the Public Health team have been able to go back to Crank Brothers and have discussions with them, and as a result of that, Public Health now feel that the matters that they have raised have been satisfied, so they've now withdrawn their representation in full.
Okay.
Yes, I have one question about one of the conditions that were listed there, but I don't know if I can ask it now or I need to ask it later on.
Because you're constrained with time, I prefer it later on, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yep.
Can I now ask the applicant, have you got any questions of the officer?
No questions from me.
No. Can I ask the objectors? Is any objector wanting to ask a question of the officer?
Yeah.
No.
No?
Well, sorry.
Chair, Tom Graham has his hand up.
Yeah, hello, Tom Graham, Friends of Finsbury Park. Look, Dahlia, I sorry to, don't take this question as disputing the veracity of what you've just said around public health, but you know, they'd set out a pretty strong position in their paper earlier this week. Where is their written summary that confirms they are comfortable with the steps the promoter has taken and their formal withdrawal of that?
I have it as the licensing officer that is charged under the legislation to deal with this matter.
I guess, Dahlia, I'll make the point when we come to commentary, Chair, but this feels a real drip of information, and I can only imagine, notwithstanding your technology challenges, it's quite hard to form an opinion with so many things coming in and out of this discussion at a late hour.
No, I think it's a matter of understanding how the licensing process works. So there is nothing stopping any party that has made representation during the specific consultation period. The legislation actively encourages that parties mediate and talk with each other. And if there is agreement, mediation during the interim period, and they feel that their matters have been sufficiently addressed, then they are able to withdraw that representation. It's entirely down to the responsible authority or the resident or whoever it might be, if they wish to then withdraw their representation.
Is that okay with you, Mr. Graham?
I think the point's noted, Chair.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. And we now hear from those who have submitted representations. Can we start with the Friends of Finsbury Park?
Sure. So first of all, Chair, thank you very much and councillors on the committee for reviewing this. The Friends of Finsbury Park is an organisation that has, 3,500 members via Twitter and circa 400 or so formally, and we represent Finsbury Park as a friends group and seek to promote and preserve it. I think I'll be brief because we've written a long submission. I want to be clear that the Friends of Finsbury Park is not principally opposed to events in Finsbury Park, and we recognise its history over the years. We support well-managed, locally focused and low impact events, and that's our kind of core position. As pertains to the specifics here, Chair, we referenced discussions last year, and I'll step through some comments around the Crank licence. 2021 was a tough year for many years, but for the park, actually, it was a really good year. It had never been more used. People in Haringey, Hackney and Islington found respite, peace, exercise. And Crank Brothers was the only major event of sorts. And I don't deny that for some participants, they had a fantastic time, but there was a real noise impact and I think a disturbance to people making good use of the park. More principally, and I worry that Crank Brothers misinterpreted this comment, that there was quite a lasting impact. So in the short term, there appeared to have been some form of sewage leak as they departed. And indeed, to this day, the grass and the ground have not recovered. Now, I recognise the licensing officers urging that you shouldn't take those things into consideration as part of this process. But I would simply note that they are downstream of this decision and the consequences are real for local residents. As a sort of secondary point, again, notwithstanding the licensing officer's comments, this process feels somewhat rushed and drip. So that isn't to dispute the comments around encouraging mediation, simply to say with 36, 37 TBCs in the document submitted, it doesn't feel like this is a straightforward basis on which to assess the decision. I shan't go into the public health withdrawal, the point's been made, but their candour early in the week, I think, represents some legitimate concerns. I guess coming to the specifics of the park and how it feels. So you'll be aware, Chair, that the council has put specific focus on reducing antisocial behaviour, crimes against women and drug dealing. And Finsbury Park suffers materially from that. Now, I recognise that the licensors are making best endeavours to control what would go on within their gates. But there is a pernicious side effect to an increased number of people within the parks that is beyond their control and is intrinsically linked to having more people there. So it feels really challenging on the one hand for us to be working so hard as a community to mitigate those effects, whilst on the other hand, the council is licensing and sort of tacitly encouraging some of the volume that those illicit bits of society serve off. So in short, I think the Friends would request the following. We're not here to seek any cancellation of Crank, but we don't think it's appropriate to expand. We would ask that the council considers the hours of the alcohol licence, noting that last year more than 1,000 people protested at the proposals to have a permanent pub within the park. We would ask that you don't put forward an indefinite licence on the basis that the Cabinet Member for Parks talked about a review of the major events policy, and it feels inappropriate to grant something inappropriate if that's going to come this year. And we would ask for consideration that we reconcile the noise monitoring and the noise limits that the council has insisted on for the Wireless Festival and the other major events that take place within the park. I would just close by saying please don't take this as a fundamental opposition to events. We recognise that the Crank brothers have taken some steps in the previous years and are trying to actively engage in community, simply to say this is an important green space. And I hope that the council cabinet members here that are chairing the committee don't take too narrow a view and recognise the impact these things have on the local space. Thank you very much indeed for listening, Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Graham. Thank you very much. Can I now call on Diane? And Diane, can I ask you, because of the shortage of time, could you not repeat anything that Mr. Graham has already said? Perhaps you could bring something different to the representation. Diane?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, the Friends of Gillespie Park are objecting to the general use of having any park used for large commercial events, as we feel it's anathema to the whole purpose of the park. As witnessed during a time, we are very concerned about the general impact on the whole park, let alone people living nearby, because people will be walking through the park. There'll be disturbance by people not being able to get access into the events, being turned away, and the fact that there'll be we object to the license application to provide alcohol, because we feel that a park should not be a pub, and to even encourage drinking by people within the barriers for the events, and people who'll be walking around probably drinking, attracted to the fact there'll be live music that they can hear, which we actually object to also, is incomprehensible to us. We should not be encouraging alcohol usage in a park which is used by children, so essential to their mental and physical well-being. We are worried about how will these crowds be controlled outside the perimeter. How will the toilets be protected? The few toilets we have near the play area and the cafe, there's queues already now for those toilets. Who will make sure that there's enough toilets, not just for people going and paying for the event, but also people who use the park? We're concerned about the vehicle movement with air pollution and with noise pollution. Is not just the event weekends, it's the whole 20 days from the 31st of July to the 19th of August, where they're setting up the deliveries, the maintenance, the clearing away, and also the closing down, the servicing of the toilets within the site. 20 days in August, when there'll be vehicle movements and those disturbances right in the area where many people go jogging, including myself, I have to say. And that area is so popular. It is such a popular area. So who will control that pollution? And finally, the noise to have amplified, we're objecting to that. The music echoes all around the park. We don't allow amplified live music now. So to allow this for weekends, plus we don't talk about wireless, is disturbing the whole ambience and the whole need for green, quiet, open spaces for families who can't go away in August. Many families live in flats, and this is they cannot afford that. Finsbury Park is essential for their well-being. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, in my haste to try and hear everybody before I disappear, I should have allowed you to comment on the Friends of Finsbury Park. So can I ask Barbara if you've got any problems with the first representation and the second one, please? Do you want to ask any of them questions?
Can I just ask the representative from the Friends of Gillespie Park? People do drink alcohol in the park now, don't they? I mean, I use Finsbury Park quite a lot, and I see people drinking alcohol, you know, in informal groups. But people do drink alcohol in the park now. Am I correct, or is there a ban on alcohol in Finsbury Park? Thank you.
Well, I don't know. All I say is I wouldn't encourage it. I mean, the park is there for children, for families. If small groups go along to drink alcohol, I'm not in charge. I mean, personally, I wouldn't encourage it at all. But we're talking about events with live music, attracting many people to come, more people than normally, many more people than normally, all probably coming with alcohol, which I don't blame them. I drink alcohol, but this is a park. It's not a large, huge pub. And we should be encouraging any of these activities which attract people And the controls you're talking about are all within the perimeter of the event. There's a huge disturbance across the whole park.
Thank you very much. As I said, we're running short on time at the moment, and I really want to get here to other councillors as well. So, Councillor Rossetti, have you any comments to make?
Yeah, I have a question from the Friends of Finsbury Park, and I would also like to suggest that if we have this sort of deadline with the rebooting of your laptop or computers, maybe perhaps it's best if we go through it, because otherwise we have to run and rush through everything, and I would really hear what people have to say. So I was wondering just if it might be more beneficial to this meeting just to go ahead with the restart. But I do have a question from the Friends of Finsbury Park. So I'm happy to do it, to pause it now if we decide that we won't stop, or wait for later. If we decide that maybe it's best we restart the laptop now.
I don't know how long that takes. I'm a novice as far as this is concerned. I've never ever seen it before. So I literally do not know. Should I press the restart button or should I press the snooze button? If someone could advise me, perhaps Naz could advise me.
What does it say on your screen?
It says your computer must restart to complete the installation of applications and software dates. Underneath, nobody else can see it. Underneath a blue thing that says restart, and next to it is one that says snooze. I'm tempted to tap on the snooze to see.
Exactly, I would do that, yes, and see what happens.
Okay, all right, that's done. But it says I've got 33 minutes left, so there we go.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
We may have to obviously adjourn within the 30, after the 32nd minute or so. But,
yes, right, and I will need your phone number to ring you back. Anyway,
my question then, okay. I think that the representative from the Friends of Finsbury Park was mentioning something about aligning the noise monitoring with the noise limits with the wireless festival, and I'm not sure I've understood the point.
Yeah,
so if you could clarify, please.
It might help you, Councillor Rossetti, because the legal person, Michelle Williams, has got her hand up, so she might be able to help you with that answer.
Well, I'm happy to respond to the question. I think the legal representative chair was responding to commentary around alcohol. So I know you have your hand up first if you want to close that.
The trouble is that this thing on my screen blocks people. I can't see who's got a hand up.
I'm happy to go second. So Michelle Williams, do you want to answer your point?
Yes, Chair. I was making a point in relation to the representations from the Friends of Gillespie Park, just to say that obviously the committee can't consider moral objections. You have to consider objections that fall within the licensing objectives rather than moral objections on, the consumption of alcohol or, the use of the park and who should use it, etc. That's the only point I was going to make. Thank you, Chair.
Can you come back now, Tom?
Very happy to. I'm just conscious the licensing officer as well put her hand up, and she's very important. So do you want to go next, Dahlia?
Yeah.
All right, I'm just going to answer Councillor Rossetti's question, basically. So what is being referred to is there is for Finsbury Park a number of what's considered nearest residential facades around the park that cuts across the 3 boroughs, and there are monitoring locations that have been put in place now some 40 or so years ago. When the license for wireless was reviewed back in 2018, one of the conditions that came out of that review was that those monitoring points were to be reevaluated and reassessed, because obviously there has been changes in the makeup of the buildings and so forth in the immediate perimeter to the park. And as a result of that reassessment of those various locations around the park, the background noise levels have decreased, basically. So what it meant was that Festival Republic were starting from a lower threshold in terms of the background noise levels had gone down, And so they were then having to plan their noise management plan in line with that, to take into consideration that they can only go 15 dB above what the new background noise levels are as things stand now. So it did mean that there was an overall reduction in the sound output, basically, at the large events. And on the Festival Republic license, the condition requires that testing or that reassessment is carried out every year, basically, to make sure that the locations are reassessed every year to ensure that we are allowing for the basic minimum background settings, and then the promoter can do 15 dB above that, with the only caveat to that was the Seven Sisters Road location, where they've got a 75 dB blankets point there.
So, Daria, thank you very much. I suppose just to be explicit and answer your question, Councillor Rossetti, I'm less interested in the review of locations at which noise monitoring takes place, although I think what Daria alludes to there is very sensible. Specifically, the higher standards that the council rightly insisted on around noise monitoring and the specific noise levels, both looking at base and others. The council has set out some sensible things. And I say that because, as you probably will have noticed, above Finsbury Park, there's now another 1,000 houses, another set of people that will be impacted by this festival, and we should monitor that. I suppose just to close that point, the legal officer noted moral objections. I don't think my friend from Gillespie Park was making any moral concerns, simply alluding to the fact alcohol has GSP side effects. Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the applicant, please, of the two representations?
No questions from me.
Thank you very much. Sarah Potter, can you make your representation now, please? And keep it as brief as you can, please.
Yes, we come from a group, Highbury Community Association, with about 700 members, and most of them live in the Islington side of the park. But we do associate ourselves with the kind of objections that came from the Friends of Finsbury Park, in that our concern was with crime, drugs, antisocial behaviour, which we think would be affected by an increase in the numbers which the licensee is applying for. So that's our objection. It's within the terms with which we had to apply.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Blake, have you any questions of the representation of Sarah Potter?
No, Chair, no, thank you. No, I haven't.
Councillor Rossetti, have you any questions? The applicant, have you any questions?
No, thank you, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly make the point about the noise level, the noise limits set by Haringey in 2018, that we are already working to those noise limits. I confirmed that with our acoustic consultant Vanguardia this afternoon. So the noise limits that our noise management plan worked to in 2019 and 2021 we're working to those same noise limits as wireless work to. And in 2021, we only generated 4 noise complaints to the event, which we felt as an internal team was quite a good achievement, given that they are quite challenging noise conditions compared to most commercial event parks in London.
Thank you very much. Can I now call on Conrad? And again, Conrad, can you please not cover other areas that other representations have been made, and be as brief as you can, please?
Right, my representation can be found at page 167 in the park regarding the new premises license application. There's an overlap with the variation one as well. The area of the park, which is where this event is going to be held, is only 70 metres from flats on the other side of Green Lanes, the Hackney flats. And it's ridiculous to have an event of this nature right bang, slap bang next to these people. In my case, I live in Stapleton Hall Road up on the hill. It's about just under half a mile from the event area. I live in an old Edwardian converted house, which is on the top floor. It's got a flat roof. During the summer, it gets very, very hot, and I'm faced with the options of either opening the windows and letting the sound come in, or shutting the windows and risking heat stroke or heat exhaustion. I'm now aged, I'm getting into my 70s now. I'm in my 70s, and heat exhaustion and heat stroke are a relevant concern for people of my age. And I don't see why I should have to suffer this because someone wants to make a load of money. That's what it's all about. With regard to, I mean, it's not only just me, because there are people living down the ladder between Whiteman Road and Green Lanes. They also suffer from the noise as well. And also, I mean, regarding the application for the extra day, well, if the extra day is a Friday, well, that's going to affect a lot of people who are now working from home. So, you know, I think it's ridiculous to allow, even to think of allowing an extra day on a working day, you know. In addition, park users will be affected by the noise as well. So one of the things on the event management plan, I noticed there wasn't any noise management plan included, and it was down as to be provided. I wonder why that's not been provided, and it would be very interesting to actually see that in black and white.
Thank you very much. I don't know if anybody wants to respond to that. If not, I'll go straight to Councillor Blake. Have you any questions?
No, Chair.
Councillor Rossetti?
No question, thanks.
The applicant? Kieran?
Jules, do you want to answer about the noise management plan?
Yeah, just to answer that point, Mr. Borowski, the reason that the noise management plan has not been entered as part of the event management plan yet is because we're always trying to improve the situation, and based upon the fact that we'd like to try and improve the noise umbrella for the locality, we're still working on the new plan. That's as simple as that. And that will be submitted within a month's time, I suspect. The intention being to improve the situation still further.
Thank you very much for that. I don't know if Gordon Hutchinson has come in. Can you check that Naz, has he come in? Gordon Hutchinson?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Come on, hurry up.
Okay, I wasn't there for the introduction, but I live very close to the park, about 200 yards. I've lived here 45 years, so I'm a devotee of the park. I just want to say I thoroughly endorse what Diana was saying earlier, that it's having these large, Haringey Council permitting these large-scale commercial events in the park over the height of summer, July, August, height of the school holidays, is really unacceptable for many, many local residents in Haringey, Islington and Hackney. I would like the council to go back to its policy, previous policy, and not have these huge commercial events during the height of summer. At the same time, 10 years ago and beyond, we welcomed small-scale community-led festivals such as the Kurdish New Year and the Latino Festival. That's fine, but I think these large-scale commercial events need to come to an end. Now, a lot of my objections have been covered already, but I wanted just to say a few words on the environment damage to the park. Cracks in their
it's not part of the license.
Sorry,
Gordon, if you could take a breath for a minute. Dahlia Barrett would like to respond to what you've just said, the licensing officer.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, Mr. Hutchinson wasn't online when we started this. If I just reiterate, please.
Yeah.
licensing subcommittee does not and cannot consider the commercial use of the park. It is not in their remit to do so. And you were just going to be saying something about the environmental impact again. That is not within the remit of the licensing subcommittee to consider either. Those matters are really and firmly sit with the Parks Service as the landlords of the park.
Just to stress that the park is a vital local public amenity, and having these events does affect people, and especially children.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just carry on?
I've only got 19 minutes left, so I really want to bring in the two councillors and trying to get through the representations, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
Just
I'll be as quick as possible.
I'd rather you held fire. Councillor Blake.
Can I?
I'm
almost finished. I just wanted to say a few words about the environmental damage that these concerts are having to the park.
Heard it's not possible. That's not part of our remit. You've just heard that from the officer. Can I call Councillor Blake? Have you any comments?
No, I have no questions or comments, Chair.
Councillor Rossetti.
Same for me. Thanks.
The applicant.
Yep, nothing from me.
Right, so I've come to you, Gina. So the last few minutes are for you. I think you're muted. Now.
Prevention of crime and disorder. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
By increasing the number of attendees from 6,000 to 8,000, the area of grass that was destroyed last August will be increased by about between 20 and 30%. Last year, 2 wet weekends resulted in at least 10 acres of compounded mud, which were hastily covered with topsoil and then reseeded. Grass grew fast in September, but stopped in autumn and now looks very fragile. We have lots of photos to prove it. So if we are talking about crime and disorder, the key environmental impact is trashing the park and hoping it will revive in time for next year's pounding. Prevention of public nuisance. The major public nuisance resulting from these festivals is noise. Now, I know we've talked about this before, but I don't think that the noise limits that the Haringey Council have set are correct. It's incredibly noisy. Now, we've been complaining about this for years now, including a judicial review. The volume of events is intolerable, but is imposed on us for 10 days this coming year, with 10 hours constant bass and drum pounding, plus shouting over a PA system by the compere. This can be heard as far away as Stamford Hill and Queenswood, and of course in all our back gardens if we're lucky enough to have one. Last year, the residents on the ladder suffered the worst, as this is where Crank Brothers set up the stage facing Endymion Road and Green Lanes. I would like to ask those making the decision about these events how they can justify allowing such high volume events when we, the council taxpayers, are not allowed to amplify music in our homes and back gardens, as it would break local bylaws. But we never get the opportunity to stop them altogether. How can this be democratic? What are Crank Brothers and the council doing to protect people going to these festivals from getting tinnitus, which is a lifelong ringing in the ears, usually as a result of hearing very loud music in clubs or festivals? What is being done about selling drugs in the park, which I know we've just covered? So yes, I'm opposed to allowing Crank Brothers to have any festival in the park. The population in this area is simply too dense to make it acceptable. If you want to have a festival like this, why not hold it in Essex or Hertfordshire? If festival goers can get to Glastonbury, they can surely get to a field near the M25.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Councillor Blake, have you any comment?
No, I haven't, thank you.
Councillor Rossetti?
No comment, thanks.
The applicant?
No, I don't have any comment.
Okay. Now, He says my computer is about to restart, whatever that means, and it's gone red. So I don't know.
We shouldn't rush this meeting around IT update.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, Chair, I was going to say maybe now would be a good time then, having heard all of the representations, to adjourn the meeting and restart, starting with the applicant.
Yes, that's what I was going to say, if that's possible. So thank you very much for all we've heard so far, and I'm sorry for this. It's not in my doing. It's nothing to do with me. It's the council's IT department. So I'm going to click off that, and I'll hopefully get back to all of you.
Right.
Chair.
Well, Nads, what will be the process for restarting the meeting? Can you just clarify?
Yes, please.
So I will try and I'll contact the chair after she's going through the shutdown process, and I will still be online here, and will inform people of the updates, and hopefully it won't take too long. Once the
Sorry, mate. Do you want us to stay on the line, or are we going to do this another night? Plan?
I would recommend you stay. I mean, if people wish to log off, I don't see a problem with that. But I think it's, you know, you can stay online. You can keep your cameras off and your microphones off. I mean, however, do you have a preference, Mr. Graham?
It's really a question to the chair. If your intent is to restart your computer, come back in 5 minutes and finish the meeting, great. If you're going to be half an hour, we should reschedule this for another night.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do my very best. As I said, it's not in my hands at all. I'm really so sorry, because I've never experienced this before.
Could I suggest we stay on them for 5 minutes, and if you're not back then, we reschedule?
Okay.
Yeah, well, Chair, I think we should put a time limit on it, given that we don't know how long it's going to be. I don't think it will be, from my own experience, I don't think it will be 5 minutes. I think it might be a bit longer, but it might be, maybe from my experience, it's been like 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah. So should we put a time limit then on it? And if we don't reconvene within, let's say, half an hour, then the meeting will be adjourned and have to be reconvened.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think we should give it half an hour.
Yeah. Councillor Rossetti?
Yes, I agree. So we stay on the line in the meantime for
And
the next half an hour to check if you come back earlier than that. Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Hopefully it'll be less than that.
Yes,
Good luck.
I'm back.
Okay.
Wow.
Councillor Peacock has made return to the meeting. Can I just ask if everyone else is present as well?
Didn't take so long.
Excellent.
That was an experience that I don't want to have again. I had absolutely no control at all. Ridiculous. So is everybody back so we can recommence?
I think we've lost your colleague, Kieran, and I think we've lost one of we've lost Diane as well, I think.
Is Councillor Rossetti back? Yes.
She might have gone to make a cup of tea. So we're just waiting for Councillor Rossetti.
Oh no, I'm here.
Oh, good. So who's not here?
I'm just off camera like everyone else.
Okay.
Diane, I don't know if you want. I think Diane Borage isn't here.
Yeah, it looks like Gina's trying to call her, so yeah, why don't we give her a minute?
Okay.
She's on her way.
How long will she be?
I've no idea. I would have thought she'd have come straight on.
Yeah. Well, Michelle, I'm in your hands. Can we carry on? Can the applicant make his case?
Which we are quorate, so I think we should carry on.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for that. And thank you, everybody. As I said, I'm really sorry all this happened. It's none of my making. So can I ask Mr. Clancy, Mr. Butterfield and Mr. Bowles, please, can you introduce your application?
Thank you, Chair. So Crankweather have been operating events for around 15 years, and we've been operating festivals in Finsbury Park since 2018. And in that time, we've had a very low level of complaints from the local area and generally very positive feedback from the local authorities. The events feature international artists, predominantly DJs, and the audience is predominantly young people aged 18 to 30, largely from the Greater London area and a large number from the Borough of Haringey itself and surrounding boroughs. These applications relate to a new application for an extra day attached to an existing event weekend and a variation application for an increase in audience number from 6,000 to 8,000 persons each day for the existing licence. Whilst the application is not time limited, as has already been pointed out, the granting of a premises licence does not grant use of the park. This application should be permitted, in our view, as Crankweather has a track record of successfully staging events in Finsbury Park with low impact on local community, positive engagement with the responsible authorities, and demonstrable responsiveness to issues and concerns when they do arise. Despite doubling our event days from 2 to 4 between 2019 and 2021, noise complaints actually reduced by nearly 60% year on year to only 4 noise complaints in 2021, which as a team we were very pleased with. The application is clearly within the licensing policy and reflects the previous engagement with the responsible authorities, and the park usage is within parks policy. although that's not an issue for this licensing subcommittee. The application has received no representations from the Metropolitan Police or the noise control teams or the nuisance teams from London Borough of Haringey or the neighbouring boroughs. One representation was received from the Haringey Public Health team requesting further information. This information has now been provided to them and they've now withdrawn their representation. There are now no remaining representations from responsible authorities. We are pleased that this reflects confidence in our event operations, the low impact of our previous shows, and also in the robust licence conditions which set out the measures required to satisfy the licensing objectives through the event planning and live event phases. The residents who have made representations, while we have listened to them and will continue to engage with them, we feel that they largely identified generic concerns about the type of impact possible from events. And in some cases, we feel they conflate our events with much larger ones. The fears about these impacts have not been reflected in feedback from responsible authorities about the staging of our previous events, and most points are well covered by our licensing conditions. I just want to move on now to a few talking points. In the case of representations relating to concerns about damage to park land, it is agreed by the landowners that the issues caused by poor weather were quickly resolved to the satisfaction of the parks team in 2021. The committee will be aware that this falls within the terms of the land use agreement and not the premises licence. Some representations were also concerned with noise. Aside from the low level of recorded noise complaints during previous editions of this event, it's important to reiterate that, as I'm sure the committee will be aware, an increase in capacity will not lead to an increase in sound levels at the event. The licence conditions and sound levels permitted are based on national guidance and local policy, and they do not change to accommodate changes in audience size. Our previous increase in licence capacity between 2019 and 2021 actually resulted in a 60% reduction in noise complaints, as an example. In terms of the management of the event, our directors have a very hands-on involvement in licensing, resident engagement and operation of the event, supported by a team of professionals covering licensing, engagement, safety and site production. We've got a huge amount of collective experience, probably in the range of 100 years between us, and we've staged between us hundreds of large-scale outdoor music events. Our key contractors and suppliers are likely to be the same as 2021, and the responsible authorities have so far been happy with these choices. The site layout will largely be the same as 2021. We're not looking at a significant increase in the site layout. In terms of the licence conditions, we're happy that the conditions attached to the current premises licence are suitable and proportionate, and we look forward to continued positive engagement with the responsible authorities throughout the event planning process. In terms of the reps themselves, some of the people making representations sought to mention Wireless Festival and to associate their representation to our applications with their concerns relating to that show. We would respectfully point out that the comparison is not accurate. Even at the increased capacity applied for, our shows are 1/5 of the capacity of the large-scale events in the park, and the space occupied is less than 25% of that being taken up by large shows. Whilst the issues that concern residents and stakeholders are the same for all scales of events in public places, it's also the case that a well-managed and well-licensed event, such as those staged by Crank Brother, the smaller scale leads to a proportionally lower risk of disruption, which is further reduced by the active approach taken by the responsible authorities and the organisers. In 2021, there was a very low level of noise complaints, despite the fact that the levels of Finsbury Park are quite stringent, which is testament to the professionalism of the operation, and the addition of live music we are not anticipating will increase volume or disturbance. A noise hotline will once again be in operation throughout the event. In terms of representations about drugs and crime, whilst the lack of reps from the Metropolitan Police can be inferred as a positive sign, we have also actively engaged with North Area BCU Partnership and Prevention Officers during the application process, who are also supportive of our plans and acknowledge the low impact of our previous events. In terms of the condition of the site post-event, the reparations were dealt with to the park's satisfaction, and it was dealt with very quickly, and we've received a supporting statement from parks to this effect. In terms of COVID risk, last year we self-imposed vaccine passports and lateral flow testing on the entrance to our event. We will continue to follow UK government guidelines in 2022 and any requirements they impose for mass gatherings. And any planning related to COVID-19 will be submitted as part of our event management documentation to the Safety Advisory Group, and particularly Public Health Harringay. In terms of local consultation, as per previous years, there will be 2 local residents virtual consultation meetings held in the months of March and June 2022. These meetings will be open to all local residents to discuss the events and their impact. We, as in previous years, will have a local community website where all relevant information will be uploaded post this decision, including a complaints number and a community email address for reaching us pre and during the event. That's about it from me.
Thank you very much. Mr. Butterfield, do you wish to add anything?
No, I have nothing to add at this time.
And Mr. Bowles?
No, thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, then can I ask Councillor Blake if you have any comments to make to the applicant?
Yes, I do have, Chair. So there's just a few. Presumably you have security guards or security patrolling the outside of the perimeter of the event, do you? So
yes, we do. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And you, I think I've read in the pack, but you won't be serving high strength alcohol. Is that the case? Did I read that you limit in the the level, the strength of the alcohol that you serve, or will you be serving high strength alcohol?
I think it probably depends on what you classify as high strength alcohol. We won't be doing sort of drinks deals for super strength alcohol. We will be serving spirits with mixers, beer, wine, cocktails, but we won't be no super strength alcohol, if that's what you're referring to.
Okay. And so the extra day that you're applying for, sorry, because this is the first time I've been on the, that you've consistently, you will be, that's an extra day for the music event. So you will be having, yes. Yeah, okay, all right. Those are my questions for the moment, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rossetti?
Yes, I do have questions, quite a few actually, so you need to have a bit of patience. I have several questions on the event safety management plan, if I may. So the first question is about the documentation that needs to be provided. And I think we have heard that the noise management plan needs to be provided because you are trying to improve it. Can I ask about the other documents that are to be provided, like the alcohol management plan, for example, the crime reduction plan, because it seems to me that you do have a plan, at least in terms of what kind of beverage you're going to serve. So I wonder why there is none of this documentation and it has to be provided.
All of those documents will come forward during the event planning and SAG process, but we work very closely with the responsible authorities in Harringay, and as far as I'm aware, it's their role to take an active role in all those documents, and they will have opportunities to fine-tune those documents between now and the event. In all the music festivals I do across London, we don't have a full package of document for an August event in February. It makes much more sense to gradually refine those documents with the experts from the responsible authorities between now and the event date. And the basic thing is that the event won't be allowed to go ahead unless all of those responsible authorities are happy with our package of documents.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I was just wondering because I understand that you have done this kind of event in the past year, and the reason why I'm asking is because I was trying to find some of the details in the management plan and I couldn't find it. So for instance, if I come to the alcohol management plan or the alcohol side of the management plan.
Councillor Rossetti,
there's somebody talking, yeah.
Hold on a minute. I think Michelle Williams wants to speak.
Yeah.
Chair, sorry, I was just going to ask if Councillor Rossetti could turn her camera on.
Ah, yes, of course.
Thank you.
Is that it? Is that it? Okay.
Yeah, can you see me?
Yeah, Councillor Rossetti, can you
Yeah.
continue?
Thank you. I was asking specifically about the alcohol management plan because I think it is mentioned in the management plan that the additional day will observe a challenge 25 policy. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yes, but there is a table and it's on page, the risk assessment, page 57 and page 74, where there is a challenge, sort of challenge 21. So let me read it to you. 57. Okay, alcohol policy in place, no alcohol served to under 18, ID required by those looking at the 21 rather than 25. And this is mentioned several times in this document. And I was also a bit puzzled because the next line, I'm in page 57, it says bar serving staff to obtain permission from their management to serve personnel already under the influence of too much alcohol. So why would you want to ask management permission to serve alcohol to personnel already under the effect of alcohol?
Yeah, I think that's, sorry, I think that's to refer to management to prevent to refuse the sale of alcohol. That may be a typo in there.
Yeah, but it should be, I mean, there shouldn't be no need to ask permission. It should be clear that you're not supposed to serve alcohol to someone that is under the influence.
Yeah, but the process is that those bar staff will need to refer it to the personal license holder on that bar so that refusal can be recorded.
Okay. And so can you confirm there is a challenge 25 and therefore that no alcohol will be served and ID required by those looking at the 25 rather than under 21 as mentioned in this table?
Yeah, I can confirm that it's a challenge 25 policy, and that sounds like possibly a mistake in the documents. That's already covered by our licensing conditions in the protection of children section, so it is 100% a challenge 25 policy across all of our shows.
This, the management plan that needs to be updated then.
Yeah, that just sounds like a bit of a mistake in the management plan. So thanks for pointing that out. We'll make that adjustment.
Okay, next question I have is on the plan, which is on page 51. And actually I want to ask if are we looking at both requests, is both applications or only one application? And we're going to look at the additional capacity later.
At this moment, we're dealing with the new application for the additional day.
Okay, so we'll reserve another question for later. But for this plan, which is on page 51, I have a couple of questions because there is a mention of a control room in the management plan, and I don't see any control room here in the plan. And there is also a mention on section about, actually it's about the toilet provision, because there is a section 18 on the management plan that just lists what the let me find it, sorry. Yes, it mentioned the event toilet provisions, so it just details the purple guide recommendation for this event are, and is listing up to 122 toilets, but then the rest of the section is all TBC, and it says that, you know, there are no details to be inserted. And I look at this plan, which is attached to this management plan, and I counted 63 toilets. So I wonder, first of all, how many are you going to put in place to make sure that all the attendees will have somewhere to go, and where in this plan the additional 60 toilets will feature, because I didn't see them in the plan.
So
do you want to answer this one, mate? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so the toilets will be provided as per the guidance, which is the Event Industry Forum guidance.
So you can confirm they're going to be, sorry, 122?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And I think, as we were explaining before, because the documents are an ongoing process in terms of the planning process, it's the case that the site drawing and the layout of the toilets hasn't been updated to match the numbers in the plan, which is really around kind of workflow capacity in terms of the application. So the additional toilet blocks will be added into the existing location, so more toilets will be added there. And you know, the point that I think Kieran was making earlier in terms of the event management plan, we expect this process to build up and to develop as we hold meetings and we deal with the responsible authorities, but also other stakeholders and contractors in terms of making the commercial arrangements for what they're providing, based on the guidance that exists and also based on the framework of the license conditions. So our final point is that unless the responsible authorities are happy with the final event management plan, the event can't happen.
I'm just trying to ascertain how this management plan is meeting the licensing objectives, because I see a plan here dated May 2021, which was submitted for an application submitted on December, and I just can't really understand exactly how many toilets are going to be provided and if they're going to be according to the guidelines which are quoted in the document which has been presented for the application.
Chair,
well,
can I intervene?
Yes, please.
Sorry, Chair, can I intervene, please? So obviously the plan that any applicant submits with their premises license, I wouldn't for 1 minute expect a promoter that's going for an indefinite license to submit to me a plan showing absolutely every little point on it, to be honest with you. So things like the toilets and stuff, I wouldn't necessarily expect to see on a plan for a large outdoor festival, because that's part of that finer detail that is done as part of the SAG planning process. And there are the event safety guide, the purple guide, the industry guides as well, that all say and give guidance to the outdoor event industry as to what the levels are for a certain capacity, how many toilets are required, what the medical provision is going to be, all that sort of thing. So that is all worked out as we go through the safety advisory process with the promoter, and they will submit their updated plans with the layout plan showing how they're going to lay out for their particular event that they're planning for. That will include where the bars are going to be, where the toilets are going to be, the entrance lane, the Disney queuing system that's going to be in place, where the medics will be, where the water fountains, the free drinking water fountains are going to be stationed in the site and that sort of thing. The staging, welfare unit, the back of house matters even. So for instance, the local authority area where we're going to have any SAG meetings on site and that sort of thing. All of that will all be fine tuned once we're in the actual planning and running up to the event. On another license, for instance, they have up until 28 days before the actual date of the event to have their event management plan agreed and ready to go 1 month ahead of the event date. Yeah, and so these promoters will be doing a similar situation here also.
Okay, so this documentation that we are reading is basically an approximation.
Sorry, it's sufficient for the it's sufficient to enable the committee to consider the application that's been put before you.
Just as a point of order, Councillor Rossetti, and to the licensing officer, you run the risk of being highly subjective here.
Sorry, speaking.
Tom Graham from the Friends of Finsbury
I
Park.
was going to call you, Tom, after Councillor Rossetti had finished.
well-
Can you just wait and let her finish, please? Councillor Rossetti, can you continue?
Yes, thank you. So I have a similar question. Then page 1 to 5 is the project details, the construction phase plan. Again, we have the dates, the key dates. So we know, for instance, Saturday, 6th of August, 7th of August, but the initial date, site build is TBC, so it's not clear if it's going to take 1 day, 2 days, 5 days. So I imagine that I will receive the same sort of response that this is TBC because it will be determined closer to the date.
Not just that alone, councillor. The other response to that will be that it comes under the Parks Service requirement, because don't forget, your remit is actually dealing with the licence for activities that's been applied for. The build-up of the event and making the space ready, that's covered under different legislation, because there's no licence for activities taking place during this time.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so next question. There have been several mentions of the police on the site during this additional day or during the festival. Can I ask if this is the normal S&T police that would be normally patrolling the ward, and instead is being deployed there during the day, or if it's police coming from other places?
Okay, so what I did last year was that obviously the police licensing team are aware of the events because they would have seen the application and had their consideration on it. It is put out for the patrol teams that are on duty to come in and do reassurance visits. So they will come in, do a reassurance check, just meet and greet with the promoter and so forth, ask us if there's anything's, that they want to raise, that sort of thing. And take a look around and then go again. To be honest with you, it's not an event that that has police allocated to it that will sit in the control room, throughout the course of the event or anything like that.
Okay, because that's not how I read the document, so that's why I wanted to ask. Last thing really, section 21 food. It says all drinks are sold in plastic cup. I just wonder if there has been any consideration for any kind of sustainable cups, like paper cups or eco-friendly cups, rather than plastic.
We actually have a no single-use plastic policy on site. So we do use plastic cups, but it's what we call a keep cup system. So you pay a deposit of I think £1 per cup when you buy a drink, and then you don't get that £1 back unless you bring the cup back to the bar. So that we're not serving kind of those soft plastic cups that end up going in landfill. They're hard cups that are then reused for our future events.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think I've finished with my questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Can I ask Mr. Graham now? Can you come back now, Mr. Graham?
I've just made, there's a sort of broader set of responses I'd like to put back, Chair, but just on the specific points to the licensing officer, your explanation is helpful, but I would just echo Councillor Rossetti's comments. It's very hard to know objectively what are the things that are stable and pertinent. So the number of people applying definitely is accurate. Yeah, we've got 8,000 people, so that got that right. But the toilets, less of a concern. I really sympathise with the applicant in that the paperwork and it is clearly quite detailed, but it's hard to know what's subjective in this decision. Sorry to make the point.
Thank you very much. Do any other of the objectors wish to make representation to this applicant?
Sorry, Chair. An opportunity to ask questions of the applicant rather than to make representations. It should be questions to the applicant.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. What measures are being agreed or thought of regarding crowd control, toilets, litter outside the perimeter? Because a lot of people, as I said earlier, will be attracted to come and try and get into the event. So I'm not talking about within the perimeter, I'm talking about outside the perimeter within the park. What are the measures, please, being there to ameliorate matters such as the need for more toilets, the need for more litter to be cleared up, the need for more control over crowds or unsociable behaviour. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. In terms of toilets, in conjunction with the parks team and the SAG, we put toilets on the ingress and the egress routes between Manor House Station and Finsbury Park Station. We also put a lot of tower lighting on that ingress and egress route because that seems to deter people from public urination. In terms of litter and the surrounding site, we have litter picking teams that are constantly circulating the site, but particularly on the ingress and egress routes. And we have our own bins on the ingress and egress routes, and those locations are agreed with the parks team. In terms of crowd control, we have quite a detailed sort of ingress plan, which is agreed during the SAG process, that sort of covers how we manage the crowds when they arrive and when they leave from the site. And so that I'd sort of say that's one of the most important parts of our planning process, really, is how we manage that number of people arriving and leaving. It's definitely something that's high on any promoter's agenda, is just to get people in and out of the event as safely and quickly as possible. But I think Finsbury Park, I think probably one of the main reasons that event organisers love using it is there are so many stations. It's so well connected as a park that it's much easier to ingress and egress people than other parks around London that have less trains per hour. So it really does work well for us in that regard. You can ingress and egress people really quite effectively in Finsbury Park.
Mr. Hutchinson, I can see your hand is up. Do you want to ask the question, Mr. Hutchinson?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question to Cranks Brothers. The applicant has put a lot of emphasis on a reduction of complaints. Many people, local people, have expressed to us that they did not have the complaint number. Would the applicant agree to leaflet local residents with the necessary information, including a complaint number?
Kieran, would you like me to just step in on that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we're going to just operate things slightly differently this year in terms of trying to get the information to the locality more efficient. So I will be doing 2 consultations in March and June, as Kieran mentioned earlier. And the way that I'm going to notify everybody about those is we will do a letter drop in the local area. So we will agree the distribution list with Haringey. It will be quite considerable. Of the distribution numbers that we've used in other parks is around about 15 to 20,000 local addresses. We'll let those, the letter that goes to those addresses will have the appropriate contacts for the event weekend on there. And I will also put those contacts on the community website. And then I will discuss how to get in touch with us over the event weekend at the local consultations.
Thank you. I can see Gina Harcourt, your hand is up. Have you a question?
Yes, it's following on the last question. Are you going to actually turn the music down if people do complain about music? Because for years we have complained about the volume and nothing has happened at all, even if our windows are rattling and we can't hear ourselves speak.
So I think just to try and answer that slightly. So the conditions that we are working to at Finsbury Park, specifically Adolphus Road, Woodstock Road, Stapleton Hall Road, Lothair Road and Rowley Gardens, they are 59, 60, 55, 59 and 60 dB respectively. That's the lowest of any London park I've worked on. That said, and I think that the fact that we only had 4 noise complaints is reflective of that. Nevertheless, we do accept that if people have feedback about direction of the PA design, about the fact that they think that they're being disturbed too much locally, then we're happy to try and improve the situation. And that's what I'm attempting to do with the new noise management plan. So, for example, Gina, if we think that the PA is facing in a direction that's going to unduly disturb you or anybody else who's living locally, then the orientation of that PA will change. If the design of the PA we think can be done in a way that doesn't project as far locally, then we'll change it. Couple of examples there of things that we're trying to do to improve the situation. So we are giving it attention, and hopefully in 2022 you'll notice some improvements.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Tom, I can see your hand is up again.
Yes, I have a number of questions, Chair, so thank you for the opportunity. To the Crank brothers, you've talked about only 4 complaints. I think you've got more than 4 people on this call. Do you think that reflects a fair view of people that were troubled by the events last summer?
Evidently not, but we can only deal with the complaints that we receive, and we worked quite closely with Haringey to make sure that we made people aware of the events last summer. But I think we can do better if we seem to be getting a message that not enough people knew about the event or knew about the complaints number. I think what Jules has mentioned is that we're going to increase the amount of letter drops that we do in the locality, providing the on-site phone number and providing the community website to give people the opportunity to complain if they're not happy with noise or antisocial behaviour or any other issues related to the event.
Noted. My second question, you alluded, Julian, to a series of consultations, and you suggested that one of the mitigations might be to point the sound system in another angle. I would contest that probably just makes the problem. But beyond that, what do you imagine you'll be consulting on?
Well, I think that it's useful to talk to the community about the concerns that they have in other parks that we've operated in and still do operate in, such as Beckenham Place Park, for example. It's helpful for locals to come to a Zoom meeting and tell us what specific issues they've got, because at a meeting like this we don't get to go into specific detail. So for example, someone in a local community might say to me, well, I've had a specific issue on this road with antisocial behaviour, or I've had a specific issue with noise on this road. That's detail that I can therefore use and try and action to improve the situation. It's basically a meeting that's set up to try and get a more harmonious umbrella going on with the local community. That's what they're for. So I take feedback from the local community and hopefully I can turn that into actions that improves things they're not happy about.
Thanks. My third question, have either of you been to the park in the last couple of weeks, and are you comfortable with the state of the ground that you left behind now that we're 7 months on?
Chair, that's not really a relevant question in terms of the licensing objectives. So I suggest that you don't answer that. Maybe Mr. Graham, if you could move on to your next question.
With respect, Ms. Williams, the applicant was unable to set the view that they'd left the park cleanly in their comments. So I don't think it's an unreasonable question, and you didn't object to that comment then.
Mr. Graham, we've explained that the environmental issues aren't a relevant consideration for the committee, and therefore that's the reason why I'm asking you to not ask that question and to move on to another question.
I'll happily move on, and I hope the objection will be made next time licence is raised. Thank you. To the fourth point, you mentioned that you hadn't had any objection from the licensing authority. I guess, would you say that you'd had no feedback at all on the sort of approach and concerns from last year?
No, it's definitely not for a lack of engagement from the licensing authority. We work really closely with Haringey Licensing Authority all the way through the entire event process. So I think I took the lack of representation from the licensing authority as an indication that we've got a strong working relationship, and they've been quite happy with the way the events have been run in 2018, 2019, 2021.
Noted. Last question. Going from 6,000 to 8,000 people, why are you doing that?
We feel that the event site is big enough to hold 8,000 people. It allows us to book larger headline artists, which we've had a lot of feedback from our audience that that's what they're looking for. There's also financial reasons for doing so because of the increased costs from suppliers across the board that I think has been pretty well documented in the press. So a large part of it is trying to make the events more sustainable.
Profitable.
Thank you. Can I now move on to Conrad?
Yeah, just going back to this issue of noise and the number of complaints which have dropped. I mean, when I make a complaint to the council, the noise prevention team, say my neighbour is making a noise that has a very loud party, during the weekends and stuff, I expect them to actually do something about it and actually come round and put a stop to the noise, or at least tell people to put turn the noise down. The trouble with these
what is your question?
The festival. Well, I mean, the issue is basically, if you complain to crank bars or any of the festival people, the noise doesn't drop. All they do is they take a note of it, and maybe next year they will actually do something about it. And that's the reason why the number of complaints have actually dropped, because there's no point in complaining. It doesn't result in anything.
Okay.
Can I respond to that quickly? Yes. Yeah. So the setup that we're employing in Beckenham Place Park in 2022, and that we intend to employ at Finsbury Park, is a proactive response during the event to noise complaints. So if we get a noise complaint from a certain area, such as your house, Mr. Borowski, then what we will do is we will send someone from the noise monitoring team to your property, and if we agree and think that it's not appropriate, then we will take corrective action on site, and that system will be in place all weekend. Thank you for that.
Can I now move on to asking you if there are any other further questions or points of clarification from anybody? I can start with Councillor Blake.
No, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Rossetti. No.
Sorry, no question.
Okay. The applicant.
Nothing from me.
No, and anybody else? If you could put your hands down now. So I'm going to ask now each party to sum up. So can we start with the members? Do we start with the members, Daniel? Or the applicant?
No summing up for me, Chair.
No. Any summing up from the applicant?
I don't have anything further to add, but thanks for all your comments. We'll take them all on board.
Any from the objectors? Any?
I'd like to ask the Crank brothers. They say they're going to do the music, the sound monitoring, but they are not independent monitors. So obviously, it's in their interest to say, "Oh, this is fine."
Gina,
they go up and see Conrad and say, "This is fine." That Gina, surely is the issue. It's not an independent monitoring body, is it?
I'm happy to answer that question. It is an independent acoustic consultant called Vanguardia, who are a very reputable national acoustic consultant. So they are independent to Crank Brother. They do our noise monitoring. They do noise monitoring for quite a lot of big events across the UK.
And Tom, can I ask you, are you asking a point of clarification, or can we move on to the next review, please?
You've asked for a brief summing up. I'm grateful to Crank Brothers for engaging in good faith comments. I would simply ask the committee that they do not expand the size and that we reflect on the downstream consequences of this choice. Okay. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask now for the applicant to sum up.
I don't have any further summing up apart from to thank you for all your comments and just let you know that we'll certainly take them all on board during the event planning process, regardless of the outcome of this committee hearing.
And Mr. Graham, are you talking on behalf of all the people who've made objections? And if so, can you sum up, please?
I think that would be presumptuous of me, but I think you've got a good flavour of views.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair, it's Michelle Williams, the legal advisor. I just wanted to ask for clarification on the application, just so that we're clear. So the new premises application, although you're applying for one additional day, which I assume is the Friday. Is that
Yes,
correct, Mr. Clancy?
that's correct. That's correct. Yeah.
But you've also in your application included the Saturday and the Sunday. Is that because for the event that would include the Friday, the footprint in terms of the map will be slightly different? I'm just trying to get some clarification as to why you've included the Saturday and the Sunday in the new premises application. Because you've got an existing license for the Saturday and the Sunday.
We do. I think the distinction we were trying to make is that it would take place on the Friday immediately before the Saturday and the Sunday. So I think the distinction we were trying to make is that it wouldn't be a separate Friday that takes place 2 months later or 2 months before. It would always be consecutive days. And the idea behind that is to reduce the amount of days that we're occupying the park.
Right, okay. So the license is for one Friday a year for the hours that you've asked for to be held consecutively with the Saturday and Sunday that are on the other license. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Either the day before the first weekend or the day before the second weekend.
Okay.
And I'm happy to have that conditioned.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Can I remind all that the committee would deliberate on the decision, which will be provided within 5 working days of this meeting. We now move on to application for a review of the premises licence at Crank Brothers, Finsbury Park, London N4. Ms. Barrett, please can you introduce your report?
Thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify, it's not a review, Chair. This is an application for the variation of the existing licence.
Okay.
Yeah, so Crank Brothers have submitted the variation seeking to increase the capacity on all the existing event days from 6,000 to 8,000, and to also add the following activities. That's the regulated entertainment in the form of live music and films at the times that's shown there on the Saturday and Sunday. We understand that obviously the applicant is going to limit the capacity to 8,000. As you know, we're talking about the carriageway over by Manor House, and that runs parallel along Green Lanes, Chair. As before, Chair, the event, large events and so forth are all subject to the process planning within the safety advisory group meetings. And just to give some background information, so these meetings are actually attended by all the blue light agencies and the responsible authorities. The promoter basically gives their event management plan to us as and when they're updating it and adding things to it. We meet on a monthly basis on the run up to the events. Matters are discussed and their plans are shared amongst the wider group. And that's the opportunity that the RAs and blue light agencies take to then give any advice back to the promoter and so forth. There are representations in the pack, Chair, and you have them on page 329 for the variation. And again, Chair, the grounds that have been cited by the residents in their representations do cover all the 4 licensing objectives, Chair. Chair, again, within this application, the public health representation has been withdrawn at this point. Chair, I'm trying not to repeat myself and allow you the opportunity to hear from all the parties on this matter. The background information remains the same, Chair, that obviously there is the 2 distinct processes, so the park hire process and also the premises license process, or the need to ensure compliance with the terms of the premises license, Chair. And as I previously said, Chair, in considering this matter, the committee may decide to grant the application and to modify any conditions that they see fit, or to exclude from the scope of the licence any of the licensable activities, or to refuse to specify the DPS, or to reject the application. And of course, clear and thorough reasons are given for any determination that is taken, Chair. Section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Act comes into play, Chair, as does the Human Rights Act, Chair. And there, Chair, I will leave it so you are able to go through and hear from all the various parties on this matter, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dana. Can I ask Councillor Bob, do you have any comments, please, on the report?
No comments, Chair.
Councillor Rossetti, have you any comments on the report?
Yes, I do. I've noticed that the management plan is exactly the same management plan that was submitted for the first application. There was the additional day. So, and again, I appreciate this is just a rough approximations, but we do have a site plan which is dated May 21. So I don't see from this management plan and from this plan how the additional capacity of 2,000 people would be managed and handled. If there's going to be additional services put in place or you know, what different provisions would be made, because we're going to be 2,000 people more than previously. So I wonder if it's possible to comment on that, because again, there are no additional plan from which it's possible to understand exactly how the organizer is planning to handle this difference.
Okay, so again, the organizer will be able to answer that for you, Chair. Obviously, as it's saying, the infrastructure will be increased. So because you're having or asking for more people on site, then your toilet provisions will go up.
Sorry, Dalia, I understand that you say obviously. To me, it's not obvious from the documentation I've received. That's why I'm asking the question. Otherwise, I wouldn't be asking. It's not so obvious. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, it's not obvious to you, Councillor. But yes.
No, it's not obvious to me. Of course, it's subjective. Yes.
So in terms of crowd increase, so therefore your infrastructure will also increase. So maybe your number of security will increase. Toilet facilities will probably increase. You probably have more food vendors on site, probably more medical staff on site. So
does the site also have to increase then? Because this plan is exactly this is dated 2021 again. So presumably this is the latest plan submitted for last summer. So where is the additional, again, the additional toilets, the additional security, the additional bars, infrastructure?
Can I interrupt you a minute? Because obviously you did not hear what Mr. Bowles said previously. There's legislation to accommodate all of that. I'd like to bring in Mr. Bowles right now.
Thank you, Chair. I think there's a slight kind of muddiness of the water between the event planning process and the event licensing process, which are two parallel tracks. So, you know, what we've got to demonstrate in terms of the licensing process is that we have systems in place to promote the licensing objectives. What we have to demonstrate via the safety advisory group process to get approval for that premises license is that actually the detail of how the event operates and how the event's managed is clear. And they're two necessary but parallel processes. And I think that may be part of the confusion. But if I can just address the site. So the site area from previous years it is just under 21,500 square meters. So in terms of audience capacity, we don't need to increase the footprint, and that was one of the considerations in terms of looking at, you know, what the capacity increase might be. It's within the same footprint, so it doesn't increase the kind of impact on the event space because there's ample space. If you work on, you know, the industry guidance is that a kind of a crowded area would allow for 2 people per square meter. So at 21,500 square meters, obviously you can see that there's plenty of room for 8,000 people plus the infrastructure. And again, as you know, I think we've been trying to kind of talk through the process. We set out what the principles are in terms of the management process, what the documents will be that the responsible authorities get to review, and who the management team are and what their credentials are, what they've been involved in the past. And we work through that process with them. But that's a slightly separate process to the event licensing process. I hope that makes sense.
It does make sense, because all I'm trying to see from this management plan, which again is the only documentation I have, is to see if the objective of prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and protection of children from harm would be met by this plan. So now you're telling me that the site, the footprint will remain the same, despite additional 2,000 more people and additional infrastructure. Is that correct?
Yes, because the existing site footprint is big enough to cope with those additional.
Okay. Okay, so I need to ask this detail because I understand that they might seem minutiae to you. I'm just trying to ascertain if the objective can be met by what I see and I read. So I don't think there is any confusion.
Okay.
Can I bring in Michelle Williams, please, and then Dahlia?
Yes, sorry, Chair. I was just going to clarify for Councillor Rossetti that it's the operating schedule, really, that sets out how the applicant will meet the licensing objectives, rather than, you know, the event management plans and the other plans that are. It's an iterative process in terms of the detailed planning of the event, but it's the operating schedule that sets out how the licensing objectives will be met. And that's the main document for
the operation. Yes, these are only conditions consistency. It doesn't really, it's not an operational schedule.
All right, can I bring in Dahlia? Hold on.
So, Chair, I was just, yeah, I was actually just going to call Councillor Rossetti's attention to page 318, really.
Yeah.
So those are the conditions that the promoter is saying in their application, that they believe that the conditions already in existence on this license are sufficient to accommodate what they're asking for. So you're asking, so basically you're looking to see if you agree that what's already here within the existing operating schedule is adequate, and not really looking at the specific different parts of the event management plan, because that's something that the safety advisory group will be dealing with going forward.
Okay.
Can I call back Michelle Williams?
Sorry, Chair, that's a legacy hand. I'll take it down.
Okay, right, thank you. All right, Councillor Rossetti, if you have no more questions, can I then
no, thank you.
Can I move on to the objectives, please? Friends of Finsbury Park, Tom?
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. I would make a similar inference to Councillor Rossetti, that at some level we're doing a little bit of a guessing game as to what's relevant and what's not. I don't need to hear from licensing and legal again, but it is hard to ascertain what's relevant to this year and what's not, but I won't litigate that again. I would ask, similar to our previous comments, that we do not increase the number of people from 6,000 to 8,000. And I would ask that we clarify that there's no intention to screen films during the afternoons when they're not being used for live music and other activities. Many thanks.
Thank you. Do you wish to comment on that, Councillor Blake? On his...
no comment, Chair.
Councillor Rossetti?
No comment, thank you.
The applicant?
We don't have any intention to screen films in the afternoon.
Okay. Can I call on Diane Burridge if you have any?
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to know what controls, monitoring, etc., about traffic movement, vehicle movement along the road to service the event for the whole 20 days. That's including the setup, the events being held, and the close down, because that road is used by a lot of joggers and walkers, and children going up to the play areas, passing through. So I'd like to know about what controls there are for those, please. And also, going back to my previous question, what controls regarding ensuring there's no disturbance in the rest of the park because of people being attracted to live music and this event, but who cannot get in for various reasons because they can't afford to pay or whatever. So those questions, please.
Thank you. Who's going to answer that one? Is Kieran?
Chair, I'd
Probably.
start by saying, unfortunately, traffic controls are also not linked to the licensing objectives and therefore are not a relevant consideration
Oh,
for the
thank you.
committee. But certainly the level of disturbance relates to public nuisance and should be responded to.
Thank you. So,
sorry, can you repeat the question that is relevant?
Well, I can't, why I'm confused. I mean, a major concern about these events is traffic moving through the park, exactly where people jog and walk, and the fumes from the traffic, the noise from the traffic, and there's a lot of movement even when the events are not being held, and it's a disturbance to the rest of the park for all those matters. So my question is, why? I mean, when Wilders is held is a major issue, so why isn't it being considered here as part of the license? I mean, who does consider it? How will there be controls and monitoring? When will the vehicles be moving? When can people jog without fumes and noise and disturbance and also danger?
Mr. Clancy, hold on. Can I call on Dahlia Barrett?
Thank you, Chair. So the Park Service will actually work out in conjunction with Mr. Clancy times for vehicle movement and that and so forth. It is something that is done both for themselves and for the larger operators as well. Like, for instance, they'll have curfew times, you know, to allow for children to be able to get through the park without any vehicle movement in the morning, and then again in the afternoon. I don't know if Kieran has a similar understanding or setup with the Park Service, but there is those kinds of conversations do take place in conjunction with the promoter and Parks as the landlord.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Can I move on to Conrad? Have you to sum up?
Yeah, just going back to this issue.
Sorry, I have another question before we sum up. I just want to make it clear.
Can I just continue with Mr. Borowski first, please? Because he's already started.
Right, thank you. Yeah, this 33% increase in the number of attendees from 6,000 to 8,000. We've been told that it's not going to increase the sound levels. But I mean, I'm very sceptical about that. I mean, you're talking about, you know, cramming in another 33% of the people, 33% people, and you know, surely it seems to me logical. You've got to boost your sound because you've got more people who are going to be coming in. I mean, I'm not a sound engineer, but I would have thought it is going to be a problem. And also, we've been told that the introduction of live music won't increase the volume in any way. Well, again, I don't know. I mean, my experience of live music and artists on stage, they like to hear themselves. They like their audience to hear them, and they'll blast the music out if they can get away with it, because that's happened before at other festivals.
So, what exactly is your question?
Well, it's not a question; it's more of a comment. I mean, I want to know how. I mean, are is Crank Brothers confident that the noise levels will not increase?
Thank you.
I'm happy to answer if necessary.
Yes, go ahead, Jules.
Yeah, the short answer to that is yes. I am confident that the noise levels won't increase on last year. One of the things I'm being tasked with, Mr. Borowski, is to make sure that the levels don't go up. We won't need to increase the volume on a difference of a crowd from 6,000 to 8,000. There's no need. And live music, which at the moment, to be fair, is quite unlikely to be included anyway. But if it was included, it wouldn't be any louder. And there's breaks in live music quite regularly for band changeovers, etc. So it actually reduces disturbance in the locality. It doesn't increase it.
Thank you. Councillor Blake, have you any comments on Conrad's question? You're muted.
No comments.
Okay. Councillor Rossetti, have you any comments on Conrad's question?
Not on a question, thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Councillor? Chair, that Mr. Hutchinson seems to have his.
Yeah, I was just going to call him.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got my finger on your name, Gordon, so I was just going to call you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheila.
I need your question, please, dear.
Will the committee please agree to make the leafleting of local residents with the complaint line details an additional condition of any new license?
Thank you. I think that was already stated by Mr. Butterfield.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just point out?
We're absolutely 100% doing it. Obviously, whether or not Haringey make it a condition is up to them, but we will 100% be doing it as promoters from every year, this year and every year going forward.
Dahlia.
Chair, can I just clarify that it is already a condition? The premises licence holder will take all reasonable steps to ensure that a leaflet drop is carried out locally in advance of the event, advising of the complaints line. Okay, so it is already a condition of licence.
Sorry.
Can I now ask?
There was no leafleting last year.
But
not in this area, which is next to the park.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that Daly will look up into that. Councillor Blake, have you any comments on Gordon's question?
No, Chair, no comment.
Councillor Rossetti, have you any comments on Gordon's question?
None on the question, thank you.
Okay. Can I move on to Gina then, please? What, Gina, can you have your question, please?
No, I haven't got any questions now.
Okay. Well, I think we've come to the end of that. That was very good, very nice. Thank you very much. And now, any questions from the members to the applicant? Councillor Blake?
No, I've asked the questions that I wanted to. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Rossetti, have you any questions of the applicant, please?
Yes, please. About the operating schedule and the mandatory condition, Annex 1, page 136. I have two questions. One again is about the challenge 25 policy. Point 5.3, the policy must require individuals who appear to be to the responsible person to be under 18 years of age. So is this a valid condition or should it be 25? The next is point 6. I think Councillor Blake was asking about high strength spirits. And I can see that here there is a provision where it says the following measures would be available to customers, and it's mentioning gin, rum, vodka, or whiskey. So I wonder if these are the high strength that the Councillor Blake was asking about. And last question, as I mentioned at the beginning, I was interested about understanding the reason for the withdrawal of the condition from public health, Haringey Public Health, because there were a lot of points made about the Ask Angela policy, and I've seen that this is not mentioning anywhere in this operating schedule in the additional data pack that we received just before the meeting. So I wonder if
exactly is your question, Councillor Rossetti?
Yes, the question is public health Haringey being happy about the fact that Ask Angela has not been included, and can I ask why has not been included in the conditions?
I thought that was spoken to by Mrs. Barrett earlier.
She said we will encourage. It's not a condition.
Please.
Can I just quickly answer that point, because I think it's quite important. So, Councillor Rossetti, I'm actually going on some Ask Angela and welfare officer training that's been driven forward by Tower Hamlets and Hackney Licensing, and then I'm going to bring that knowledge into the team for the events that are in Haringey, and then I'm going to get our team that are working on the ground to also take that training. What I just haven't got to the bottom of yet, because I haven't had time to investigate it, is who's running that training from the Haringey side, whether there's anybody that's doing it in Haringey, because I'm only currently aware of it being run from Hackney and Tower Hamlets. But as soon as I've completed that training, I'll be bringing those skills over into this event.
Okay, so there's no objection to that being a condition.
In terms of the public health conversations that we've had. What we'd agreed with public health via licensing was that we would engage with them on the matters that they'd raised as part of the planning process, and that we would, we would look at incorporating the things that they wanted to see within future editions of the event management plan.
Yes, so you wouldn't object to that as a condition?
What would the condition be?
The implementation of the Ask Angela policy.
No, I don't think we would have a problem with that, would we, Kieran?
Okay, and can you please address this section where it says that NAD will be asked to people who look to be under 18 years of age rather than 25?
Yeah, so those are the mandatory conditions that are on every premises license that are issued by every licensing authority. So those conditions go on regardless of what the operating schedule is for every pub, club, and event in the country.
Thank you. Can I call on Adalia, because your hand is up?
Sorry, Mr. Bowles has just given that answer that I was going to give clarity on what the mandatory conditions are. And I think it's probably worth some clarity also that when public health are asking about high strength alcohol, that's really in relation to high strength beers, ciders and lagers. And it really came about through incidents of street drinkers in a given area. And unfortunately, not sure fortunately, but public health put it on all representations that they come across on applications really, and it may not have been in the right context really for an event of this kind. It really does sit better on your supermarkets and not small off licenses where you've got street drinking issues arising, and then you put in the ABV condition on that license to basically stop the prospective license holder from being able to sell high strength lagers, beers and alcohol and ciders to known street drinkers in a given area. That's really what it's about. And also I was going to just clarify, I could have sworn I saw something on this license earlier around the need for welfare and vulnerable. It was in the context of on the new application, sorry. Yeah, so just to cover also what Julian was saying, it's called wave training that I take it that you're going to undertake at the moment, and it is being in fact pushed by the Metropolitan Police. It's been pushed all across London, and the police are the ones who are delivering the training, because I'm signed up for it as well. So it is something that is being pushed across the board, and with particular a particular interest in being more proactive around the violence against young women and girls and vulnerability, drink spiking, that sort of thing. That's yeah, that's what's been pushed at the moment. Okay.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Can we move on now? Can I ask Mr. Clancy, Mr. Butterfield and Mr. Bowles, please, can you introduce your application?
Hi everyone. I won't go through the application again in huge detail, because I don't want you to lose the will to live, but we are looking to increase our capacity from 6,000 to 8,000. As I think we've mentioned previously, the event site footprint is not going to increase significantly. The event management plan will be broadly similar to 2021, but with some obvious operational differences given the increased capacity. I won't sort of go into those differences in sort of operational measures, because I think it's very well covered at the SAG, and the Haringey responsible authorities are experts in their respective areas, and are extremely good at this, and as are we, and we'll work very closely with them throughout the SAG process to make sure that the whole planning process is appropriate to the new capacity if it's granted. But nothing else about the event is going to change apart from the capacity. So I won't sort of run through all of the detail that I did about half an hour ago, just in the interest of saving time. But happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. County. Mr. Butterfield, do you want to say anything?
No, nothing to add at this point. Thank you.
Mr. Bowles, you want to add something?
No, that's fine, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Can I ask Councillor Blake if you have any comments, any questions of the applicant?
No, no questions, Chair.
Can I ask Councillor Rossetti if you have any questions of the applicant?
No question, and apologize because I realize now that the applicant had already made his case, so I should have probably had to wait before asking. But so
okay,
yeah.
Okay, Mr. Graham, if you have any questions of the applicant?
Yes, a couple. If the approval from 6,000 to 8,000 doesn't get approved, what will that do to the festival's viability?
I'll cross that bridge when I come to it, but I haven't really got as far as thinking about what that would mean for the future of the festival.
Thank you.
Mr. Hutchinson, have you got any questions of the applicant?
Yeah, to Julian, the applicant has already said the footprint would not increase, but now you're saying it will increase significantly. Broadly the same. Could you explain a bit more?
I think you might have misheard me there. I'm pretty sure I said it won't increase significantly. It's broadly the same footprint.
Okay. Right, if there are no other questions, can I ask each party to sum up? So can I ask the applicant to sum up, please?
Sorry, Chair, can I just point out, sorry, to go back to Councillor Rossetti's question, I knew I'd seen this on the existing licence, sorry. So there is already a condition on there that says that there shall be an area within the licensed sport area dedicated to dealing with vulnerable adults. So already there is a condition for within the existing licence for the promoter to have something in place in order for such issues should they arise on site. I think what we're trying to do is to put everything within a group name. So that's why we got the Arcs for Angela, now the wave training being pushed out by the police. So
yeah, but that's slightly different to say, like you explicitly mentioned the Challenge 25 policy, saying explicitly implement Ask Angela rather than having a dedicated area, to me is not the same thing.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So, Kieran, are you going to sum up for the Crank Brothers?
I don't have anything else to mention really, apart from thank you all for your comments, and we'll take them on board in the event planning process, regardless of the outcome of this committee hearing.
Well, I'm going to go through the list again of the people that were objecting. So can I ask the Friends of Finsbury Park, which is Tom Graham, to sum up, please?
I mean, Chair, thank you for a well-run session. It was good debates. The Crank Brothers, I understand the pains of the process, so forgive the questioning, but you feel the challenge and frustration of the local community around big events in the park. And I suppose, trying to talk for many here in the interest of time, we appreciate that festivals of a scale will continue to go ahead until the council updates its major events policy, and would encourage this committee to keep to 6,000 with some of the conditions we've discussed this evening. As a sort of broader point in the round, it continues to be very hard to have a structured discussion around some of these things. So not specifically to the Crank application, the nature in which information is drip fed, withdrawn, what's pertinent and what's not, but perhaps that's for a broader discussion, Chair. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Can I ask Diane Burridge to sum up for yourself, please?
Not for myself, on behalf of Friends of Finsbury Park, thank you. Obviously I'm very concerned about the use of the park for these activities and the disturbance throughout the whole park. And I'm very concerned for the cyclists, the joggers, people want to relax, have peace and calm in the park away from where the event's going to be held. And I've said it many times, so that's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Conrad, can you sum up, please?
Yeah, I just hope that the committee doesn't agree to the increase of numbers from 6,000 to 8,000. And that's all I have to say.
Okay. Can I ask Mr. Hutchinson to sum up, please?
Yeah, in Crank's information on their website and application, they are promoting their environmental credentials. Quote, Crank's Brothers is aware of substantial environmental impact of music festivals. I just want to say this, first of all, the site they've been given in Finsbury Park is totally inappropriate because it's an area which is prone to flooding. I looked at the park, that area yesterday, it's just a complete mud swamp. So and all the grass seed that was put in last year has died off. So that's something to take into consideration. It's not an appropriate site. The other thing, the site is surrounded by over 100 years old heritage London plane trees, and the soil compactation, which is being scientifically proved, would well affect the life of these trees. That's all I want to say.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Can I now call on Gina to sum up, please?
Nothing more to add.
Thank you very much. Okay. So where are we now? We've summed up, and once each party has summed up, I remind all of you that the committee will deliberate on the decision and which will be provided within 5 working days of the meeting. Can I thank everybody for attending and for putting up with my debacle with the IT, because that really threw me, but I think we've come through it very well, and I thank you for your attendance tonight.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank
Good
you,
evening.
Chair.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.